The Demeter Code by Russell Brooks. Music composed by Jeremy Vaco. Chapter 1. The Hooper Adams Hotel, 16th Street, Washington, D.C., 1:36 p.m., Friday. "Hey! Watch where you're going, damn it!" bitched the woman as Dr. Nita Parris bumped her shoulder upon rushing into the hotel lobby on entering through the revolving door. Parris turned halfway at the hip, raising an open palm. "Sorry." But she wasn't. The woman had the audacity to blame her. She was the one texting on the phone while walking in a crowded room on top of that. If she was still a teenager, Parris would have cussed her out, or even slapped the phone out of her hand. Not the typical behavior of a woman with a PhD in biochemistry and microbiology. She could hear her aunt being vexed and breaking out the Barbadian accent. "What you gonna stoop to she-level for? You know better than that, you know." Those were the days when Parris used to be quick-tempered and got into a lot of fights, and winning them. Even some of the boys didn't dare trouble her, as she's proven over and over that she could stand her ground with them, and even out-sprint them. When she wound up in the headmaster's office, which was frequently, he always ranted on how bright a future she had, considering that she was one of the school's top students. With those aptitudes, she should be setting an example. But that was the past. She wouldn't stoop to the level of some socialite, especially when her asset was 8 floors above, fearing for his life. Despite having spent the last 5 years living in the D.C. area, she had never been inside any of its hotels, even for an op. To anyone else in the lobby who happened to notice her, Parris was probably just another 20-something-year-old black woman. She wore a navy blue pantsuit with a cool belt that looped through silver-toned gromets, a pair of low-heeled blaniks, and a bumblebee-shaped brooch pinned to the left under the Mandarin-style collar. Her black, shiny hair was tied back in a ponytail, not too long, just long enough to reach the base of her neck. Observers would think that she was either a guest who was there on business or a lawyer meeting a client. Either one was fine by her. Parris scanned the lobby on her way to the elevators. Aside from catching the occasional whiff of perfume or aftershave, she spotted 2 Wall Street types laughing over a beer through the doorway of the hotel restaurant. On the other side were 2 children chasing each other around their suitcases while their parents addressed the receptionists. She then passed an Asian family who spoke Mandarin, followed by an elderly couple. She couldn't speak their languages, but she recognized a few words. One man stood out from the others. He stood to her left, leaning sideways against the wall adjacent from her. His profile screamed gym nut, wearing jeans and an unzipped windbreaker to show off his pectorals. All he appeared to care about was what was on his iPhone. Either that, or seeing that he had a clear view of the elevators. He was keeping an eye on who went in and who came out. She didn't stare at him or anyone else because of the potential of any given person in the lobby being part of a surveillance team. She spotted a decorative mirror on a support beam a few feet away. She walked past it, turning her head towards the mirror as though she happened to spot it by chance, then stepped back to look at herself. To the casual observer, it would look as though she was fixing her hair, but she was buying time. She straightened the brooch while she watched Jim Boy. One mistake she'd seen in the past from fellow agents while doing counter-surveillance training was once they lost a tail, they settled into their comfort zone, one ripe with the false sense of security. They never thought that there wouldn't be a second or even a third pair of eyes on them. Parris knew a lot about being in a non-surveillance comfort zone while she did her tradecraft training, and she wound up with 2 stinging paint gun blasts to the chest and to the side above her hip. Not a mistake she made again. After all, she was used to being a perfectionist. It's also what got her recruited into the CIA as a weapons analyst before becoming a field agent. Parris licked her fingertip and ran it across both eyebrows. "Dewan, you see me yet?" "Yeah, I got you." Dewan Douglas, her newest tech support, answered through her earpiece. He would have hacked into the hotel's closed-circuit television, or CCTV, long before she arrived, playing Big Brother from his safe haven at Langley, Virginia. It helped, but it wasn't perfect. There were always spots the CCTV was blind to, and a professional would have been smart enough to hang out in those areas to avoid being seen. Parris brushed off a strand of hair from her jacket sleeve. "Gym fanatic at 7 o'clock. "I saw him," Dewan replied. "He arrived there with some chick who's now on her way down from their suite. They've been guests for the past 4 days, so I wouldn't worry about him." She trusted that Dewan would have used face recognition software to locate and identify Jim Boy through the hotel's CCTV archives, and then cross-referenced it with the hotel's guest list. She headed for the elevator, grabbing her cell phone from her belt clip to call her asset, Tim Whalen. He answered after the second ring. "Timothy," she said. "Who's this?" he answered. "You know who it is. I'm on my way up. Are you armed? Because I know they're going to be coming for me with some very, very, very big guns." He spoke fast, so he must really be scared shitless. "You're going to have to calm down and let us worry about who may be coming after you." Parris pressed the elevator button. One of the 6 elevator doors opened, but it was already going down. She did a quick once-over of the 3 people who walked out. Nothing suspicious. "How can you tell me to calm down?" Timothy still spoke at warp speed. "You're not the one they're trying to kill." Parris sighed as she hit the elevator button 2 more times, as though that would make it arrive faster. "Stay in your room. I'm coming to get you. Got it?" There was a brief pause on the other end. Yeah, okay." There was a ping, and the doors to an elevator opened. Parris got in and hit the 8th floor button, hoping that the doors would close before anyone else could enter. Yes, it was easier for her to say what she said to Wayland. What else was she supposed to tell him? All she cared about at the moment was getting him away from this hotel and handing him over to the FBI, who'd take him to one of their safe houses. The elevator came to a stop and the doors opened. Parris checked both directions as she stepped out. "You still there?" "I'm here," Whalen answered. "Good. I'm almost there." She headed to her right, where the hall connected with another in a T. She heard footsteps and soon saw Whalen pop out from around the corner. He wore his horn-rimmed glasses, a knapsack, and wore a Green Lantern shirt under his unzipped windbreaker. Oh, for the love of! There were so many curse words that she wanted to shout out right now. She told him to stay in his room, and for several good reasons. The main one being that the floor had not yet been cleared of any potential hostiles. Whalen inadvertently made himself an easy target. 2 hours before, he was supposed to have met her at Union Station, only to stand her up. She had a team search his apartment and monitor the police bandwidths. Nothing. When Parris called him on his cell, all she got were messages telling her that the number was no longer in service, which only worried her even more. Fortunately, Whalen made contact with her, letting her know his whereabouts. Whalen pointed behind Parris as he approached. "Are we taking the elevator or the—" An electrical surge shot through Parris's nerves as she grabbed him by the front of his jacket and threw him against the wall, putting her weight behind her forearm to pin him. "Listen to me, because I'm not repeating myself. When I tell you to wait for me, whether it's at Union Station or in your damn hotel room, it's not a request. You got that?" His lower lip trembled as the blood rushed from his cheeks. Whalen rapidly nodded. That was too easy for her taste. Parris pushed harder against him, watching his face go paler. "Are you sure?" Tim nodded with his mouth agape. Yes, I understand. It won't happen again, I swear." "Good." She released him. "I hope you didn't shit your drawers." Parris then checked their flanks before she looked back at Waylon, who took a deep breath and straightened his glasses. She grabbed his arm. "Come." Waylon nearly dropped his knapsack after being yanked so ruggedly. He was 5'9", had sand-colored unkempt hair, and weighed roughly 160 pounds when Parris first met him. But right now, he appeared to have lost almost 10 to 15 pounds. It was as though he hadn't eaten well for the past several days. She wouldn't be surprised if that's what set off his employer's radar, whom he was recruited by her to spy on, and thus putting a hit on him. There was a ping from the elevator, and Parris saw the chambermaid exiting with her laundry cart. The attendant was around her age and roughly her height, standing around 5'8". Although the maid's movements weren't suspicious, Parris still had every reason to be paranoid. In situations such as this, paranoia was often a lifesaver. For instance, the laundry cart? That was an ideal place to hide a firearm with a suppressor. The maid knocked on the first door. "Housekeeping." "Dewan," whispered Nita as she kept walking. She slid her hand behind her and under her jacket to the Springfield EMP in her hip holster. "Go ahead," Dewan answered. "Is there anyone registered in room 815? "Timothy's the only person on that floor. Why?" said Dewan in her earpiece. They were less than 40 meters away as Parris saw the maid reach inside the laundry cart, followed by her swinging a firearm in her direction. Parris drew first as she sidestepped in front of Timothy while disengaging the thumb safety, took aim, and squeezed the trigger. The bullet caught the would-be assassin in between her eye and left ear, throwing her into the wall before she fell to the floor. Parris turned to see Timothy ducking with both hands covering his ears. "You okay?" Parris asked. The shock was all over his face as he breathed rapidly, nodding a few seconds later. She scanned both ends of the hall. "Stay close." Parris ran to the woman, keeping her sidearm pointed towards her target, and saw her weapon. It was an HK-USP tactical with suppressor. Not a bad choice of weapon for this situation. It was both small and light. She kicked it away out of habit, even though she knew that the threat had been eliminated. Parris turned at the sound of running and saw her asset bolting in the opposite direction. "Waylon!" Parris yelled, holstering her weapon and taking off after him. Being a former sprint champion, she closed the gap fairly quickly. Waylon skidded as he made his way around the corner at the T-junction, heading to the emergency stairs. "Waylon, stop!" Parris yelled again as she rounded the corner, but he didn't listen. Poor guy. Probably never saw someone get shot before, and right in front of him too. And now he was in a state of fight or flight. "Hey Parris, you gotta stop him now!" cried out Dewan as Timothy was less than 20 meters away from the emergency exit. Her heart skipped a beat when a tall, bulky man wearing a waist-length jacket exited the staircase and collided with Timothy. Parris saw an object fall from the man's hand. It was a sidearm. This concludes Chapter 1, Part 1. Stay tuned next week for another exciting episode of The Demeter Code.